Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 7 of the podcast about anything, everything, and nothing, sometimes all at the same time. This is Shotgun and Shots.
Woo!
Wow. Ooh, had a little more shot.
Welcome, gentlemen. It's been a long time.
A bit of a hiatus.
I'll try to explain. So, I don't remember what episode it was out of the 6 that we did, but at one point, I remember saying something about talking about going back to school and if I could and stuff like that. And to all our listener out there, that's what happened. Decided I was going to go back to school and
Got all uppity on us. Thinks he's better than us now.
not yet. I will be. But one of my classes just happened to fall on the night that we always record, and so we kind of had to put everything off. Now I'm into my second quarter, and in this quarter, I don't have a class on this night, so luckily we can get back together and hopefully start bringing entertainment to you guys again.
So are you learning anything?
Yes and no. The first couple classes are usually just your core stuff, and it's almost like a recap of your senior year of high school, and just to kind of refresh everything. Really didn't even get too in depth with the stuff that we did do. But one of the classes I had to take last semester is actually the one that was on the night we record. Was a 7th quarter class. It's one that they usually do at the end of the program. But that class didn't have any prerequisites, so they kind of bumped it forward and let me take it early. And so that one, I learned because it was stuff that obviously I should have learned later on during the course. But luckily, it had to deal with a lot of stuff that I just happened to be doing in my job. So a lot of stuff that he talked about actually made sense to me because I deal with it anyway, so it was pretty cool. So what have you guys been up to?
Man, same old shit. I've been looking for a new job with no luck, but that's about all. I mean, same old work and hating it.
What is it? What job are you thinking you're trying to get?
Right now, I'd be up for just about anything. I mean, I'm not getting any work at my current job. It's just been so slow. I need to find something to replace the paycheck. So,
Have you just completely given up on the idea of doing the appraisals?
Well, I never did appraisals, but as far as the inspections, I would have to go back to do the class, and I mean, no, I haven't.
How hard could that be? Fucking Jeff did it.
No, it's. I mean,
what?
It's not. It's not that. I mean, it's. I mean, I could go back and take the class. It's only like a 2-week class or something like that. But it's just time and money to do it.
Time is money.
Yeah.
I got a midget calling me.
You got a midget colony?
Sure.
Did you say
that was a
midget colony? Is that what you said?
That's what Scott said.
What's the name of your midget colony?
I said calling me, but Scott said colony.
Yeah.
That was a Gone in 60 Seconds reference. Scott, how you been?
Oh, same old. Visiting doctors, taking medicine.
Gotta love that.
Fun.
That's my life.
Noticed you had a couple of new games in there. You got to play Last of Us?
Yes, I got the newly released remastered version of The Last of Us for the PS4. Really great game, a lot of fun, great story, very emotional, draws you in, great characters. Highly recommend it. It's very enjoyable.
Is it something that, or do you know if they're going to do like any type of expansion to it, or is it pretty much once you play through, you're done?
Well, they've already had the one DLC that comes with the remastered version for the PS4. So, to the best of my knowledge, I have heard that they're going to release more DLCs down the line. And I'm certain, as successful as the game has been, that there'll be sequels to it. So.
That seems to be the way that they do a lot of the games now. Is that it's you get the disc version that comes with about 10 hours worth of gameplay, and then you get DLC for another 20 or 30 on top of that.
Is this a zombie game?
Well, yes.
Okay.
Well, there's far more than 10 hours of gameplay in The Last of Us.
Well, yeah, I was just throwing it in.
And there's the DLC is probably only a couple hours worth of gameplay, but it's a very integral part of the story. It tells a large part of the story that's skipped over in the original, and also it has the multiplayer, which gives you a lot of replay value, things you can continue to do to build your character up. So I'd highly recommend it, and it's one of the best stories, especially one of the most emotional stories that I've seen in a game in a long time.
Now, is it zombies like in the sense of zombies that everybody always thinks of, or is it virus?
From the pictures,
Well,
it almost
you'd
looks
have
like
to,
a I Am Legend kind of thing.
Well, you'd have to kind of define what you think the stereotypical idea of zombies would be, what you think everybody would automatically think of as zombies.
I guess zombies is always the stereotypical version I think of anyway, is the reanimation of the dead. Kind of like the Resident Evils, and even Resident Evil, I guess, was brought on by some sort of a virus that. What's going on with like The Walking Dead? How do theirs is supposedly some sort of virus, but it doesn't necessarily kill the person. It just takes over.
No, it just whenever somebody dies, it reanimates the dead body, and you have to kill the brain to
The Walking Dead is an unknown virus.
So far it's unknown. Yeah,
But it's basically every person
is infected
with it.
Right, and
when you die, it brings you back to life, unless you're burnt or
the brain's killed. Yeah.
And I'm thinking that, like in the Resident Evil ones, that was the virus more made you crazy, and they get the zombified kind of look just because they quit taking care of themselves, and their flesh starts to rot or whatever.
The story in The Last of Us is that it's
without giving too much away.
It's actually this is just the basis of the of the zombie story. Basically, is that it's a fungus that is actually based off of a real fungus that this really happens, but it's on a more of a bacterial level. But it's a fungus that it infects people, implants itself kind of like a parasite, basically, into their brains and grows, and it takes control of the body function. So the people are not actually dead. They're not really walking dead.
Right.
They're not really zombies. It just takes control of their function. It takes over their body by taking over their brain. It only has one purpose, and that's to replicate. So, and to infect other people.
You know what?
Once it gets to a certain part, because there's actually like 4 stages of the zombie, and then once it gets to a certain part where the human body can no longer support it, it basically like finds a place to die and turns into this like large, basically spore-producing plant, kind of, where it produces the spore to infect other people when they come. They get near it.
Have you heard of the zombie ants?
I think that's what you were talking about, being on the based on the true story, because I remember hearing something about that.
Yeah, the zombie ants are kind of like that, where the whatever, I don't know if it's fungus or what, but it takes over their body controls and kind of makes them climb a tree or a plant of some sort. When they get up there, it kills them and then drops all the spores, I guess, down for other ants to infect them, yeah, and just start the whole process over. So that's what it sounded like to me.
Yeah, it's something like that. I don't think that's the exact story that it's based off of, but yeah, this.
But the pictures.
When I said it's based off of a true story, I didn't say true story. It's based off of true scientific.
Right.
But there's an actual parasite fungus that does this to other plants. I think it mainly is in plants. I don't believe it does it in animals. The one they're talking about.
Yeah, I mean the one that I heard about the ants that's the only thing that it ever happened to was these ants. But from these pictures, it almost looks kind of like an I Am Legend kind of thing. But I mean, I don't know.
In what way?
Well, I mean, just kind of and I mean, now this is just the pictures I'm looking at on the internet here, where it looks like it's just, you know, a couple people walking around the city, you know, where nobody else is. And I don't even see any zombies in there. But I don't know if they're night creatures or what in this.
No. I mean, there's actually a large population of people, hunters and raiders, of people who are not infected. And the zombies, like I said, there's the 4 different stages. I kind of hesitate to try to go through them because I don't know if I can remember them all. But I know like the first stage, it's just where it becomes infected and they just attack. And in the second stage, I know they're called clickers because the like fungus that grows on the body after it takes over renders the person blind, and so they actually use like a type of sonar, by making a clicking noise to be able to map their surrounding and know where people are.
Right.
So that's why they call them the clickers. And then the third version, I forget what they call them, but they're like bloated, and the fungus forms almost like an armor over their body, so they're really hard to kill. And then the 4th version is where they turn into the basically like the spore producing plant after their death.
All right.
Oh, there you go. A little breakdown on that one. So basically, the premise of the show is that we all get together. Each of us brings a topic, and we just talk about the topic. So, who wants to go first this week?
How about you go first?
Want me to go?
I'll volunteer. I'll
Okay,
volunteer
Scott,
to start because there's a topic that I want to talk about, or that I feel like I guess we have to talk about that's been talked to death really over the past couple of weeks, but has to be mentioned and brought up, and I think we should get it get it out of the way and move on. And so the topic I'm thinking of course, is all of the recent problems in the NFL.
Right.
With the Ray Rice domestic violence situation, the Adrian Peterson alleged child abuse situation, the Greg Hardy domestic violence situation. There's the player for San Francisco. His last name is McDonald. I can't think of his first name. It might be Ray McDonald. I'm not positive about that. But his alleged domestic violence, and now there's the running back for. What team is it? Arizona, for the Arizona Cardinals. Dwyer, I think his name is. That's also alleged to have domestic violence. So, I guess it's the topic I'll throw out to begin with, since there's a lot to talk about here. We'll start out just to begin with. Why do you think it's fair or proper that the NFL suspended Ray Rice for 2 games for domestic violence, and then after the second videotape was released, suddenly changed their mind and made it an indefinite suspension?
See, I really feel like this is a really hard question to answer. I mean, and I don't think there is a definite answer to it. My first problem with the whole situation is, I mean, they made the new rules. The first domestic violence, first offense of domestic violence, you get suspended, 6 games or something like that? Mm-hmm. And then second time is lifetime ban. Is that right? Or something like that?
I don't know. I'm not positive about this.
These are the new rules?
Yeah, the new rules. But is there different levels of domestic violence where they enact these suspensions? I mean, yes, I believe Ray Rice should definitely get some sort of penalty and probably should go to jail for what he did.
I'm interested. I'm interested in what would you think would be like different levels of
I mean that's exactly what I'm talking about, though. Is, I mean, domestic violence can be anything from arguing with somebody out on your front porch and having the neighbors call the police, where there's no physical violence, all the way up to beating the crap out of somebody so that she gets knocked out and drug out of an elevator.
Why's it got to be she?
Well, I don't think.
Well, that's true too, but
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's correct. I'm not sure that an argument can be classified as domestic violence.
well, I mean, it can. I mean, you can get arrested for it. Once it comes out in court that there was no physical damage, it may be dropped or something like that. But I know people that have been arrested because, well, for one thing, I mean, somebody could be lying. Somebody could say, "Yeah, well, he hit me," and he goes to jail, even though he never did hit her. But on the other hand, too, what if she hits him and they get domestic violence charges against both of them or something like that? I mean, I don't know how you decide whether it's worth the suspension or not.
Well, I would think that even if you're accused of it, I would assume that as far as the NFL stands, what they would have to do is immediately suspend the player, pending any type of investigation. Then once the investigation finds out what actually happened and stuff like that, then you enact whatever penalty needs to be done. I think with these current situations, the biggest problem that I had with it was the fact that nothing was done for so long.
Well, yeah.
That there was no immediate action that happened. And yeah, everybody has an opinion on the whole thing, and I believe that there's no way that Goodell didn't see this video. There's no way they didn't know about it or that it didn't exist or whatever it was. All the excuses and crap that they're throwing out there are just that. They're just excuses.
I agree.
And for really, that's the biggest issue that I have with what happened with it, was I think that this could have been approached differently. It should have been approached differently, and it should have been taken care of, with immediate results rather than dragging it out. I think the only reason they did that was to make money, and
I don't understand why Ray Rice didn't have any charges pressed against him either. I mean, even if his wife didn't want to do it, the state, I think they were in New Jersey, the state of New Jersey could have pressed charges against him, and I don't understand why they didn't. And that, I mean, that would, I think, would have pressed the NFL to do more earlier too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think on to touch on something you said, I'm not sure. My question, I guess, is where does the idea of due process come in? I'm not sure it's fair to the player to be suspended from their job simply because you're accused of something when you haven't been charged. We are charged, haven't been found guilty, and had a trial. I'm not sure that the right move is you're instantly suspended. Just because you're accused of doing something that you may not have done.
I can kind of agree with that for the most part, yeah.
Well, I thought that when I said it, but at the same time, if one of us was accused and you wound up getting taken into jail, because that's what would happen to one of us. If somebody accused us of doing any type of domestic violence, the cop isn't going to ask a bunch of questions. He's going to put you in handcuffs and he's going to take you to jail. And then that's where you begin your fight. And when your job finds out that you just went to prison or went to jail, then they're going to sit there and say, okay, well, don't come back until you get this all straightened out. And so why should it be any different for these, overpaid athletes who, I'm not saying that that he's not due whatever money that he should get or anything like that. But it's like, okay, this has happened. You've been put in this situation. If you didn't act like that to begin with, then the situation wouldn't exist. So if you're accused of this, then you're immediately put on suspension. Now, if after whatever process is done, they find out that no, you didn't actually do that, well, then you can be entitled to back pay or whatever in order to make up for what happened. But to me, the whole key of it is that if you weren't, it's the same thing as like people getting arrested for drugs. If you weren't around drugs, then you wouldn't get arrested for drugs. So if you're not in a situation where domestic violence could occur, then you won't have problems with domestic violence. If you're going to be in that situation, then you need to be aware of what consequences could come from you being there. You know, if you go out and you smoke pot, you should be aware that if you fail a drug test, that you're going to lose your job.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like comparing apples to oranges, though. How are you supposed to know that you're in a situation where domestic violence could be
Well,
accused?
I mean,
You could be accused of domestic violence.
if you're in a
especially
relationship,
if you didn't do it, if it didn't actually even happen.
if you're in a relationship, you're in a situation where domestic violence could happen.
Well, no, I mean, it's like you said, if you're, and like you were talking about the different levels of it. I mean, if you're standing out in public and you're yelling and screaming at each other, then you have made yourself now in this situation where somebody could report you for domestic violence. Now, the proper way to handle that would be not to go yell and scream out in public. Any man or woman in the heat of any type of argument can very easily say, we're not going to talk about this right now. I'm upset. You're upset. We need to both take a step back and think about this before it escalates, or before anything else happens. Anybody can have that type of self-control. Now, if you want to talk about all the rash of all these things, I think a lot of it is contributed to the fact that, or is contributed to by the fact that a lot of these athletes are, I mean, they are athletes, which means they have a higher amount of testosterone, naturally running through their bodies. And testosterone is a type of chemical or whatever that naturally makes you more aggressive. So because of that, I think that has a lot to do with these players reacting the way that they do. I don't think that they intentionally mean to do what they do. They just don't realize it while they're doing it. I mean, I think Adrian Peterson actually said that. He just didn't realize.
Well, Adrian Peterson, I don't see the same as a Ray Rice, or I don't even know exactly what all the other ones are exactly accused of. Adrian Peterson, I mean, if you grew up in the South, you went out and you got your own switch off the tree and you got spanked with it. Now, I've not seen the pictures of the child, but they say that it was pretty bad as far as cuts or bruises or whatever that was left on the kid's skin. So he may have gone too far, and maybe that was the reason. But as far as spanking him with a switch, I mean, that's just how he grew up. That's what he was used to.
Right.
And I personally don't see anything wrong with that part of it. Now, if he went too far, obviously there's a problem with that.
Right.
But let me ask you this too: Ray Rice, we'll use him. Let's say he does his time, he gets suspended, he gets to. If he were charged with it, he went to jail or did his time or his probation or whatever it is. When, if ever, can he come back to the NFL?
Well, I think to me, it would be as long as he's willing to, go through some sort of program. It's similar to like a drug rehab. If you're willing to go through this program, whether he needs it or not, if he's found guilty of this offense, then you go through the program. And if he sits there and still thinks, to the end of time that he did not do that thing, then just suck it up, go through the program, and then come back and do your job again. Again, now you've learned your lesson so that next time you won't be in that situation. Yeah,
I mean, part of the reason I asked that is you look at some of the other people that have had illegal issues. I mean, Mike Vick did his time. He was out for a year or more, went to jail, he did his time, he came back, he's back in the NFL. Fine. Ray Lewis, Pac-Man Jones, was like the other guy from, I think he was from Titans, that was accused of shooting somebody in a nightclub.
Oh, that tight end? Well, hey, he actually went to jail. Hernandez?
Well, Hernandez will never be back in the NFL. He'll be in prison for life. But I can't remember who it was. But these people, they all are back in were back in the NFL. Some of them with no suspension at all, and they're accused of possibly killing somebody, allegedly killing somebody, but.
And I think maybe that's why all this outrage kind of came up with, here recently with Goodell, that you need to come up with some sort of way to police, I guess, your players. You need to have some sort of a concrete policy that states, when this happens, this is the penalty for it. And I think that's why a lot of people here recently have been kind of yelling and screaming at Goodell, saying that he doesn't know what he's doing, and causing all these problems, or and not handling these problems the way he's supposed to.
But I think to answer your question, obviously at some point the NFL will reinstate Ray Rice, but it will all depend on basically how he handles the situation, what he does, whether he's, repentful of his actions, whether he goes through the, counseling and programs that he needs to go through, whether he, maybe sets up or helps support or becomes the face of, programs to promote the fight against domestic violence. All that will depend on how soon he's capable of getting back into the NFL. But it's still going to come down to whether or not any NFL team would be willing to put this player back on his team, to have this player representing their organization.
Right.
And a lot of that, unfortunately, has to do with whether or not Ray Rice can help their team win. And Ray Rice is 32 years old?
Yeah, I guess he is kind of getting out there now.
32-year-old running back, who is at the very least at the bottom end of his prime. I'd be surprised if you see Ray Rice play in the NFL again.
I think the thing that concerns me about it is that you can see this having an impact further down the ranks. You look at Jameis Winston and how he feels, like he's pretty much untouchable, and how he's already gotten away with, at least one crime, and he's been accused of 2 more. And then, even his outburst here, which is the most recent, thing that's come up.
Who was this?
Jameis Winston.
Oh, yeah.
Quarterback for Florida State.
Well, this outburst, first of all, he stood up on a picnic table in the student union and yelled out something like, "Fuck her right in the pussy." To me, that was a college prank. I could care less that he did that. I think he got dared by somebody, and he stood up and he did it to win his bet or whatever. And I could care less that he did that.
I don't know that it was a dare. Because me and Jameis go way back, but just the demeanor that I've seen from the kid, I really think that he feels like he's untouchable and that he can do whatever he wants to do.
He may have felt that way, and I think he's just immature, and in that situation, that's what he was being. He was being immature. He was being stupid, but it's college. Things like that happen at college. You do stupid shit that's supposed to be funny, and somebody might get offended by it. Personally, that doesn't offend me. Now, on the other hand, stealing stuff, or especially getting accused of rape, those are very serious things, and those should be dealt with probably before he set his foot back on the field.
Right, and I think that was part of the thing. If you're being accused of rape, the last thing you should probably be jumping up and screaming is "fuck her right in the pussy."
Well, that's probably true too.
And then on top of that, the fact that he just went and stole that stuff and basically didn't even get a slap on the wrist. They said, "Oh, he stole it," and then it was just kind of like, "Oh, he gave it back" or whatever. I don't even know what the solution or the end of that story was, but I know nothing happened to the kid. Now, yeah, it's a college thing. College kids do stupid stuff. And the one article that I read, a lot of the people that were, quote unquote, reporting it, they were putting on Twitter or whatever it was, were more laughing at it. They were saying like, "Oh, he just did this crazy thing," and stuff like that. And a lot of the students probably did feel that way. But Florida State, as a university, has to go to him and say, "You can't do that. You are one of the most prominent faces of this university. When people think of you, they think of Florida State, and sometimes vice versa. And because of that, you need to learn how to carry yourself." Now, a lot of it is, I think, that he's just young and dumb. but a lot of it is too is that when he was in high school, he was a star player, and everybody wanted him to come, play for him. He got put into Florida State, and of course he got treated at Florida State as a star player. And so he's basically been built to think that he is bulletproof. Everybody's told him that for the last 8 years, 6, 8 years. And so why is he now all of a sudden not supposed to believe that?
Well, I definitely believe that, especially since, it went all the way down to, coming out in full pads at the Clemson game, trying to warm up with the team, saying, "Oh, they're not really going to suspend me. They're going to end up letting me play. So I'm going to go ahead and dress out and."
Yeah, and I don't know if that's what it was or if it was just a misunderstanding, because it almost looked like, from the little clips that I saw at the beginning of the game, it was almost like he thought that his suspension was still for the first half.
Oh, really? Well,
that's just the way. That was my impression of what I saw.
Well, yeah,
it looked like
I didn't get to watch the game, so
yeah, it looked like he was out there throwing the ball around, at the opening, and Jimbo came over there and talked to him, and Jimbo probably said, "What are you doing wearing your pads?" And he was like, "Oh, well, I'm going to play." And Jimbo was like, "No, you're not." And Jimbo looked frustrated. And I don't know if it was more of a frustration of, why didn't anybody tell him this, or whatever it was. But to me, it's like, if you're the head coach, you should have been the one that went and told him. I mean, if you
that is
as
your
a head
job,
coach,
yeah.
as a head coach, you didn't think to go tell your star quarterback that he's been suspended for the entire game.
Yeah, well, the whole incident with him jumping up on the table and yelling something's not that big of a deal to me overall. The problem with it is it shows a pattern of behavior.
Exactly.
Of poor decisions,
Yeah.
of not learning his lesson, not growing up, not maturing, not understanding that, maybe this is, a silly college prank, and most people could jump up on the table and do that and get away with it and not get in much trouble. But he's in the national spotlight. He's in the national spotlight already for doing things that makes his character questionable. And now he's doing something that obviously is just going to exacerbate that. And I think that's the reason that he is going to end up falling in the draft for the NFL. So someone's going to take him because he's talented. And if you're talented, you're going to get drafted and you're going to get a chance, especially if a team thinks you can help them win, because they're about the bottom line. But he's probably ruined any chance he had of being drafted number 1 overall or even in the top 10. He's probably going to be low first round, maybe second, and that's if there's no further incidents in his career, in his college career.
See, that's what I was about to say. Is I think if he cleans up, and maybe plays out, through his senior year, he might be able to get that draft pick.
I want to say I saw something about that basically said that if he were to go to the draft right now, he lost something like 20 places. And it was, and yeah, he's young. Luckily, I guess if you want to call it that, he's young enough in his career that he can fix it. He's a sophomore, which means next year, if he has a spotless year, still continues to produce on the field, he could definitely climb back up the ranks again and be one of the top contenders.
You say he's a sophomore. I mean, he's like 19, 20 years old, something like that. I mean, he's still very young. I mean, think about it when you were 19, 20 years old, what you were doing.
Oh, yeah.
I was an idiot.
Oh, yeah.
I would do stupid shit, absolutely. I mean, obviously, I didn't have the national spotlight on me, so that's something that he needs to learn. But, you can change, too, though. I mean, look at Cam Newton. Cam Newton did some stupid shit when he was in college at Florida, and now, I mean, you don't hear about him doing anything stupid. He's straightened up. When he went to Auburn, he never got in any trouble, and since he's been in Carolina, he hadn't got in any trouble.
Except for stealing that laptop.
That was at Florida.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you might have been young and stupid and done some crazy things when you're in college, but were you accused of rape?
No, that's
not a young, silly, stupid
You're right.
college thing.
You're right. That is a lot more serious. Absolutely, it is.
But the thing with that is it kind of ties back into what we were talking about before, though, and it's kind of I don't know if it's a circle or a double-edged sword or however you want to refer to it, but if you're famous, then people are going to try to bring you down. I guess the evidence all said that no, he did not rape that girl.
Well, there's a new
Now-
investigation on that, so we don't know that.
Well, I thought that was another one.
It may be a different one. I don't know.
I thought it was two different people.
I thought it was the same one, but I have no
No, it's
idea.
the same one.
Is it okay?
It's
Well,
the same one. The original investigation that found him not guilty was the police investigation. This is a
University.
investigation that's required by the NCAA and under the Title IX.
Okay. So, at any rate, you kind of have to give him the benefit of the doubt. You have to go back to that whole innocent until proven guilty thing of, because he's in the national spotlight. Some girl he goes to a party, some girl gets drunk and starts hanging all over him. It is consensual, but in the morning she wakes up and goes, either dollar signs pop up in her eyes, or she sits there and says, I can't believe what he did to me, whatever it is. And then all of a sudden he gets accused of something, not saying that it did or didn't happen, but, until they have some sort of proof, you kind of have to give him the benefit. But if that happens, if you are accused of it, then you would think you would clean up your act and sit there and go like, okay, people are out to get me. Somebody from the organization from Florida State should have been sitting there telling him, look, kid, people are going to want to try to take you down. You have got to fly the straight and narrow right now because, as long as you're in the spotlight like this, there's going to be somebody out there that wants to take you out.
Yeah, I mean, there's always talk about handlers and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think Stephen Garcia had a handler at South Carolina, but see what good that did him. I mean,
it got him 5 extra chances.
Well, but I mean, they're just young and stupid. I mean, if that's how they are, that's what they're going to do.
Right. But and to tie back into what I was originally saying was, unfortunately, because you have these pro athletes that are getting away with things like this, the college athletes feel like they can get away with it. And eventually it will probably work its way down to high school. And actually there's probably high school kids now that either feel like or do get away with a lot of crimes. I mean, you think about the town that we live in, it's a small town that has a very successful football team. And there's a star quarterback or receiver or running back or something on that star football team that could probably do whatever he wanted in that little town and get away with it because somebody would say, you can't arrest that guy. He's, the number one guy on the team.
But you end up with people like Marcus Lattimore.
What about him?
He's exactly the opposite.
Yeah. I mean, and I guess that's what's kind of irritating about it is because you get people like Marcus Lattimore that come out and they actually are like these super nice guys. And so it's like, it is possible.
No, absolutely.
It is possible to be a star player, make it through all the rankings and everything.
Has he played yet? No.
He's not eligible until week 6.
Why?
So they put him on the PUP.
Oh, really?
PUP list, yeah.
Okay.
PUP?
Physically unable to perform.
Oh, wow. Really? Oh. Interesting. So that means like his rehab hasn't gone well, or?
I think they weren't.
I heard wasn't 100% yet.
Yeah, I heard he wasn't 100%
ready.
at the beginning of the season, but I didn't know that they were how they were listing him.
All right, and before we move on to our next topic, I want one more question as far as the Adrian Peterson case goes. Do you think it's okay to spank your child?
See, I do. I have to say I do because I was, and I mean, as long as you're not inflicting any damage, I don't really see anything wrong with it. I mean, that's how I grew up, and that's how I've always just seen punishment done. I mean, I wouldn't want to do it. Wouldn't really want to do it myself just because I don't want to hit anybody, but I don't see anything wrong with it either.
I'm going to see where would be my question. Okay, let's say I brought a dinner to work or lunch to work, my name on it. I told you, I said, okay, this is my lunch. I'm putting it in the refrigerator. It's mine. Don't eat it. And then you went and you ate my lunch. I came back and I found out that you ate my lunch, even though I told you not to. So I go outside and I get a switch and I beat you on the rear end with it to teach you a lesson, a discipline, to show you shouldn't have done that. Now, that would be against the law. That would be assault. So why would it be assault if I beat you with a switch on the rear end, and it's not assault if a father does it to his child? Why is it because this child is under the age of 18, suddenly he's not covered by that law?
I understand what you're saying there, and I mean, like I said, I grew up that way, and that's why. I mean, I guess that's just why. To me, it seems okay. I'm not saying it necessarily is.
Well, there's a different set of laws to protect the children. That would be the abuse laws. That protect kids from being beaten by their parents. But I think what you're more asking is kind of like who gets to say where the line is between discipline and
assault. Yeah,
assault. Exactly. It's impossible. It's impossible to police a parent spanking their child. It's
right.
impossible to know. It's impossible to know if most parents, when they spank their child, are probably not abusing them or probably not doing anything wrong.
Right.
But it's impossible because you're not inside that house. You're not in there. You don't know. It's impossible to police whether you're doing it the right way or crossing the line. So the only way you can protect children from having their parents cross the line and beat them would be to outlaw spanking or beating or a child at all.
But see, even
if it was only 10% of the parents are crossing the line and abusing their children, it would be worth outlawing it completely across the board to protect that 10% of kids who wouldn't be protected otherwise.
Well, I think the biggest issue with that, though, is that there's abuse can be defined in so many different ways. I mean, what makes it okay or not okay to spank your kid, but it is okay to make him go sit in a corner, where you're basically making him, be socially separated from everything else that's going on. How is it okay to sit there and say, well, we're going to put him in timeout, where he goes and sits in his room all by himself and teaches and basically says, you're not allowed to be with the family because you stayed away. Now, I agree with you. I mean, you have physical abuse where you're beating your child, too much, but you can also have a mental issue, a mental abuse, where if you're constantly pushing the kid away and saying you're not part of this family, you're not part of this unit.
Okay, yeah, absolutely, you're correct. But that's two completely different issues, and you have to deal with one issue at a time. That's an issue to be that you have to be dealt with on its own, separate of this.
But I guess my question is...
The issue we're dealing with here is whether or not spanking is appropriate, and whether it should be allowed in the country, or whether we should just outlaw it, and then you wouldn't have to worry about whether or not certain parents are abusing their kids by spanking them.
The thing is, though, the way I look at it, though, I think is that say 10% that you called out of the people that are abusing their kids are going to do that regardless.
That's a totally random
number.
Yeah. Research. I don't know what the actual percentages are,
but that 10% or whatever percentage it is that is abusing their kid is probably going to abuse their kid, even if there is a law.
No, that's true, but you're giving the law enforcement the tools and the ability they need to go after that 10%, to where now it's almost impossible.
I guess it's arguable.
Not to mention the fact of how hypocritical it is, because in every other part of society, especially in this country, you teach your kids that it is never appropriate to use violence to solve problems. Mm-hmm. It's never appropriate to hit someone else, not because you disagree with them or you're mad at them or because they did something you didn't like or took something of yours. That's never appropriate. And then you turn right around, and when they do something wrong, the first thing you do is hit them.
Right.
So you're sending a complete mixed message to your child. So what lesson are they supposed to learn from that?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I mean, you're getting into the whole how do you raise your kids thing, and that's a complicated issue for me to begin with. I don't know that there is a right or wrong answer for any of that stuff. It's
So
I don't like. I've heard a lot of people bring that issue up too. Of the don't tell me how to parent my kid. Well, we already tell people how to parent their kid. We already tell people that you can't lock your kid in the closet for 8 hours as a punishment. You can't leave your kid locked in a hot car for 8 hours or 3 or 4 hours while you go in and get groceries.
Well, that's not.
There's logic involved. That there are laws that protect children, and there are certain things that you can tell a parent that yes, you can do this, and no, you can't do that. So the argument of just don't tell me how to raise my kid, I don't think that holds water.
So what we need to do then is go ahead and prepare them for adulthood, and when they do something wrong, you build a small little prison in your house. And just throw them in the prison when they do something bad.
you sit them down in front of a judge.
Yeah,
You get a bunch of other little kids out there, ask them if it's okay.
You try them and then put them in jail. I mean, obviously,
those things already happen if the kid breaks a law. There is juvenile court.
I know there is.
There
yes,
is
but
juvenile detention.
I'm trying to
There
lighten
are
the
those
situation
things.
a little bit.
It's kind of like what you were saying though. Is it's there are certain things that from ages 1 to 3 they're not going to understand as well as they do from 12 to 15. If from 1 to 3 a swat on the butt is probably a more effective tool for teaching them that's not what you're supposed to do than sitting them down and explaining to them how their action has disappointed you or harmed the family in some manner. To me, when I was a teenager, one of the worst, quote unquote punishments that I ever got was my dad telling me that he was disappointed in me. I had been spanked before. I had gotten grounded. I mean, I've had all those different things, but hearing him say the words, I'm just extremely disappointed in you was probably one of the most damaging types of, not I say damaging, but most effective ways of disciplining me that I had ever been through. But I wouldn't have understood that at 4 years old. At 17, I understood it completely. It made complete sense to me. And yes, at 17, if he'd have spanked me, I'd have been like, "Come on, old man, you got to bring more than that."
Exactly.
See, I actually completely disagree with that. At least as far as the part of saying that you think like a 1 to 3 year old understands it better, a spanking better than they do sitting down and talking to them. Because I don't believe a 3-year-old has any idea or any clue why they're getting spanked. I don't think that registers with them. I don't think they understand it as being discipline or tough love. I don't think they're old enough to comprehend that yet.
At 3 years old?
And I don't think, of course. And
at 3 years old, they're talking.
I don't think setting them down and talking to them necessarily will get the message through either. But I don't believe a spanking does either. I don't think they understand why they're getting spanked.
If a child is reaching for something they're not supposed to, and you pop their hand every time that they do reach for it, they're going to learn pretty quickly that they don't need to reach for that. I mean, just like if they get burned on the stove, they're going to learn not to touch the stove. Not that you're burning them, but if they accidentally get burned, they're going to learn not to touch that stove anymore. But I mean, I kind of agree that a child that age is too young to comprehend a lot of things, but I think they can comprehend that if it doesn't have to necessarily be popping them on the hand. Even if you just tell them to stop every time they do something,
Yeah, exactly.
Either way will probably work. But sitting them down and explaining it to them, no, they're not. They're too young to comprehend that. But at a 15-year-old, complete opposite.
And I guess it depends too on what you're talking about. I mean, if you catch them in the act, then yes, a swat on the butt is going to be very effective. If you're coming home and you see a bunch of papers torn up on the floor, you're not going to bring your kid over there, rub their nose in it, and spank them on the butt. I mean, obviously then that's where it comes into the fact of they don't understand why they're getting, punished or whatever it is. But yeah, I mean, as far as spanking is concerned, I think spanking is an effective tool when they're caught in the act of doing the thing that they're not supposed to do. And it's more so it's reinforced with the fact, and by spanking, I don't mean, bringing up welts and blood.
Right. Absolutely.
I think one pop is just as good as, I think one pop is good enough. You don't need to hit them 5 or 6 times.
I think in a lot of ways, it's lazy. It's a lot easier to take a kid and spank them on the rear end than it is to try to set them down and explain to them why they shouldn't be doing that.
No.
Well,
it takes a lot more time and a lot more work.
I do know that when I was spanked, I learned my lesson. When I got spanked for something that I wasn't supposed to be doing, I didn't do that anymore.
Right. And grounding was like the most ineffective.
Yeah,
you're going to sit there and take away my phone for a week or whatever.
I honestly don't think I was ever grounded. Maybe once I was grounded. My parents just didn't do that.
Yeah, I got grounded. Several times. I say several times. I was grounded and not saying I didn't learn. That okay, I don't need to fool with that or whatever it was, but at the same time, it was just kind of like whatever. You took this away from me for a week. I can live for a week without it. I know that all it means is that within a week's time, I'm getting it back, or by the time the week was over, I was done, playing with that toy or whatever it was anyway. So, I think
After
grounding. Shoot, yeah, man. When you're that young, you got a whole box full of toys. They're going to take one of them away. Like, sure, thanks.
Still got the box. So.
Yeah.
Grounding's a far more useful form of discipline as the child gets older. Grounding a teenager from being able to go see their friends, to go out and go to a party or something, or participating in a sporting event that they want to do or something, that's much more effective to an older child than it is to a young child.
Means more to their social. Yeah.
And the biggest problem I think most parents make is not following through when they ground their kids. They'll ground them with something and then they'll let it slide.
Oh yeah.
And that's just teaching your child to that these are idle threats. They mean nothing. I don't have to pay any attention to them.
Yeah. Well, that was a random switch from football all the way. Well, I guess we did stay on the whole discipline thing.
It was kind of it was.
We did stay pretty much on topic.
And now, hopefully, we can move on to another topic.
Yeah, something a little
more lighthearted.
Yeah. Do y'all want to talk about the TV shows and get something a little easier to talk about?
Sure. What the hell?
Oh, let's do our shot here. Wait a minute. Hang on. Let me.
Here's a shot.
Oh crap! Hang on.
What are you doing?
Putting something in there so that there's not dead air.
Yeah. So I did think of this about 45 seconds to a minute into the show. Realized that I didn't introduce us like I normally do. So we'll go ahead and throw it in here, right here, midway through the show. I'm one of your hosts, Jeff. Alongside me is Scott.
As always.
And next to him is Keller.
Howdy.
What the heck is that? Is he saying that he got hit in the head?
No, he did get hit in the head.
Oh. That's awesome. Okay, so go ahead, Keller. Sorry.
Random.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Sorry, Keller. I didn't mean to hit you in the head like that. I told you not to take my fucking lunch.
What were you going to say? Or you?
Oh, you want me to do that? Okay. Well, no, I was just wanting to bring up some of the new fall TV shows. Right before the show, we all mentioned we all watched Gotham. Anybody got anything about that they want to talk about?
In particular?
Let me try that again.
I'll let...
We're going to do the rest of the show in English?
Gibberish? Well, we are in 2 shots in. Some of us have been drinking along the show. So.
Shots you've been making us when we're like 4 shots in.
That's how we roll. So, what was your take? Positive, negative on Gotham?
Positive.
All right, we'll let you go first. So go ahead and give your Keller. What was yours?
I kind of want to abstain until I see another episode.
Okay. So we have a positive off of Scott. I'm not going to say that I'm negative, but I'm not going to say positive either. I'm not abstaining like Keller is, but I don't think I had as positive of a reaction as maybe other people might have had. So we'll let Scott go first with the good news, and then Jeff will go with the bad news, and then Keller can draw a conclusion or abstain. So what'd you think, Scott?
I liked it.
What did you like about it?
It's a show about Gotham.
Well, I mean, like I said, you can't go wrong with Batman. Absolutely.
With all the Batman characters, there's Bruce Wayne's in there. You got the Jim Gordon. I'm sorry, excuse me. You saw the beginning of Catwoman with Selena Kyle. You got Cobblepot as Penguin. You had Enigma in there as the Riddler. Hell, there were probably some that I even missed. I'm not 100% sure who. I cannot remember what her name was. The woman that played the nightclub owner. Actually, was that Jada Pinkett Smith?
No, I don't know. It says the Riddler was in there. Which one was he? Corey Michael Smith?
I don't know who that is.
I don't either. He's going to be the Riddler.
Enigma. He's Edward Enigma.
No, that's. Oh wow,
yeah,
that's right. That is the Riddler.
The nightclub.
He was the like forensic expert with the police.
He was one of the guys that he showed up real briefly when the cops came in.
He wasn't in much of the episode.
Okay.
In the nightclub, her name was Fish.
Well, let me ask you this.
I wasn't sure who she was supposed to be.
The first episode was really just kind of setting a backstory for the whole thing, but what I want to know is the series. I kind of get the feeling it's going to end up kind of being like a CSI set in Gotham with Jim Gordon as the head detective. Does anybody know if that's what it's going to be like? Or
from what I understood, the story was supposed to be following Gordon.
Right.
It's not about Bruce Wayne or Batman. It's about Jim Gordon.
But what I'm saying, I that's what I got too. But is he going to be? Is it going to be like a CSI where each week they have a new crime to solve, and sometimes it'll probably be Cobblepot or whoever that ends up being the person.
It's possible.
Well, if you're asking if it's going to be more of a serialized show where it's a just kind of like a different story week to week that doesn't build on itself, I don't believe so. I think it's going to be a lot more about Gordon fighting against the system and the corruption inside the police department and throughout Gotham and the mob and crime syndicates and Gotham and how he rises to commissioner.
And that's why I wanted to abstain, because I don't know exactly where it's going from there. What they did on that first that pilot episode, I liked for the most part. There was a couple things that I remember just kind of like thinking like what, but I don't remember what they were at the moment. But that's where I didn't know where the story was going, if it was going to be a series type show or if it was going to be more of a continuing story.
Well, the thing of it is I think they're always going to have and this is one of the things that I guess didn't like about it. I liked the show. I think it was really cool, but again, like we talked about, it's Batman. You're gonna like it. Yeah. What I didn't like about it is that you kind of have the storyline of Bruce Wayne Bruce Wayne's parents getting killed and finding the person that killed him and who it was and stuff like that. Well, anybody who's followed Batman knows that, one, that story changes every time they do it, but two, that Gordon really doesn't catch whoever that was. I don't know that it ever gets answered as to who it was that actually killed his parents. It was just a thug that led him down the path to become Batman. Now, I know back in the 80s, Tim Burton made it where it was the Joker,
right?
But I don't know that that's like the comic book version of
I think
the
it's,
thug.
Yeah, and I think you're right. It's not really, doesn't need to be known who it was.
Right.
It's just that particular person is what started it all.
In this version of it,
Nolan movies, they called the person that killed his parents.
I didn't think they did.
Oh yeah, because that was the main part of the Batman Begins, where Bruce Wayne shows back up from college with the intentions of killing the man because he was going to be released on parole, and Falcone sent someone to kill him instead.
I have to go back and watch Begins again. I don't remember that.
But either way, it was still just some random thug. Though.
Yeah, it wasn't anyone important.
Yeah, and see, like this one, they're making it more like the mob is the one that ordered the hit on the Waynes. And I guess that's kind of the irritating part of it is that Gordon, I guess the story, the major story arc of this series is going to be that Gordon's trying to find the guy that killed the Waynes. But it's going to turn out that it's going to be this massive undertaking, and he's never actually going to figure it out. And if and when he does figure it out, that's pretty much going to be the end of that major storyline. The other part that I didn't like about it was the introduction of all the characters. There's no reason whatsoever to put all those characters in the very first episode.
I kind of thought that too. I thought it was a little excessive.
To me, that almost ruined it. If you think back, like one of the best WB series that I like was Smallville. And in Smallville, it focused on, Clark growing up, learning how to use his powers, becoming Superman, all the things that it took to influence him into becoming that. Now, I know it's a completely different storyline. It's a much happier storyline with Superman than it is with Batman. But to me, I think Gotham would have been a lot cooler story if it focused on Bruce Wayne and all the trials that he was going through as a kid into adolescence and so on and so forth, going through all that stuff, more so than following Gordon. Me personally, I'm not really interested in how Detective Gordon becomes Commissioner Gordon. And I know that this series, I think, is supposed to be more about the city than it is about Batman.
Well, yeah, I never thought it was really supposed to be about Batman. I mean, okay. I mean that was kind of the whole thing, was it was supposed to be, pre-Batman stuff, but I don't know. I mean, I would kind of like to see, Gordon come up to Commissioner.
I mean, I'm kind of like you. It's too early for me to reserve judgment and say that yes, it's awesome or no, it sucks or anything like that. But there were certain pet peeves. Not knowing who the club owner was really didn't bother me that much because I know the Batman lore is gigantic, and so to me that was just, that's a new person that's probably been in a Batman story that I just didn't know anything about, and really that's cool. I enjoy learning more about these characters that I didn't realize were even in it. If you go back and you watch Beware the Batman, which is but it's a cartoon. It focused on really some of the first villains that Batman ever went against that were only in a couple of the comic books and never really made it into the mainstream. But these were major villains that Batman went up against. And so that to me is actually really cool. But I didn't like how they introduced all the characters. I didn't like how it appears that Catwoman is a couple of years, if not 5 or 10 years older than Bruce.
Yeah, and that was something that kind of interested me. It was the age of all the characters in general.
Nigma was a whole lot older. I mean, he's working for the police department. You know, Enigma is much older than what Bruce Wayne is. Now, Penguin didn't bother me because I always, you know, I guess you kind of go back to what was your first introduction to Batman.
Right.
You know, my first introduction was Adam West Batman. So seeing an older Penguin really didn't bother me because
Right,
I'm used to seeing
exactly.
Burgess Meredith anyway. You know, but Enigma, you know, the Enigma that I remember was near the same age as Batman, maybe a little bit younger.
I mean, I could see him being a couple years older too, but I mean, what is Bruce Wayne, like 9, 10 years old? And if
I'm not
even-
sure. Do you know?
He's older than that.
Is he older than
Yeah,
that?
he's I think around 12.
But even still, I mean, that gives, 15 years on, at least 15 years on him.
Right, for Enigma, yeah. And then,
Well, what you're assuming that he's what, like 30?
Well, not quite, mid-20s.
that'd be 27, yeah.
He's, if he was the forensics guy. Is that what you,
I think so. Something in the police department like that.
yeah, I mean, you got to put him at mid-20s in there.
Maybe mid-20s. Maybe. I mean, he could be straight. He could be fresh out of college too.
Well, even then, you're still looking at 10.
22, 23, maybe
Yeah.
maybe 10 years difference. I don't see that as that's not that huge. Not especially when you consider that at a certain point in the Batman lore, everyone stops aging.
Oh, yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true too. I mean, even 10, 15 years. I mean, for Enigma and the Penguin, I really don't have too much of a problem with. But no, Catwoman, on the other hand, she should be closer to his age, I think.
Especially when they had Ivy that looked like she was his age.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would look like she was his age, but I don't really see where I didn't think that the actress playing Catwoman looked like she was all that much older than Bruce Wayne.
Well,
maybe,
I mean, she's gotta be at
3 or
least-
4 years, maybe. I didn't think she could be any more than maybe 16 or 17.
Really?
No,
Well, even if that's 5.
5 years.
Yeah.
5 years is a lot. Seems like a lot at that age.
I didn't.
5
put-
years is nothing when you're 25,
right?
25
But
and 30.
I didn't place her as a teenager at all. I figured her, to be early 20s.
I didn't go that old. I figured her to be in her teens, mid to high teens. I'm thinking of the 16 to 18. I don't even think she hit 18. Yeah, I'm thinking more that 15 to 17 range probably.
I'll have to go check that out again. I didn't see her being that young, but
But I think what kind of got me about it though was that I always pictured Catwoman being, the same or younger than
Right.
Batman. I never would have picked her to be older.
I-
And I see what you're saying about when you're 12 to 15 or 12 to 17, it looks like a huge difference. But from 32 to 37,
Yeah,
you
it's
don't
not that
notice
big of
it.
a difference at all.
Yeah.
And I really didn't think that that especially the actor playing Cobblepot, I thought he looked extremely young. Like I would have said he's no more than maybe 20 or 21.
Well, I figured him to be around Enigma, be in that same mid 20s.
right about
Yeah,
the same age.
mid-20s,
I think
yeah.
they're both
Yeah.
young, early to mid 20s.
right, yeah, that's why I said I didn't have a problem with their ages at all.
Of course, and all the Batman lore, or maybe not all of it, but a majority of it, Enigma's always portrayed as being sort of a troubled genius. So it's
Yeah.
entirely possible that he could have graduated college at 18 and been working at a police department that might not be but 20 years old.
But even then, you're still talking an 8-year difference.
Which
I don't know. It's everybody's personal preferences. I mean, there are people that have watched the Nolan films, and that was their first introduction to Batman. And so seeing all these characters probably makes no difference to them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I had no problem with either one of Enigma or Penguin, their ages at all. But I have to go back and check on Selena. I didn't see her that young at all.
And I guess really, if you wanted to go back and look at the Adam West Batman, a lot of those guys probably were a lot older than what Batman is.
Hey, you know what? Catwoman might have actually been older than.
I think she was, and
Yeah.
really all of them, I think, were probably older than Adam West was at that time. I mean, you could argue that if you wanted to, just the way, like I said, it's all personal preference of it. And I'm not saying that I'm not going to, keep watching it. I'll keep watching it. But of course that then makes me kind of excited about the Flash to see what they're going to do with it when it comes out.
Yeah, I know nothing about the Flash.
I wonder about Arrow because they kind of quit talking about Arrow, which I guess Arrow's on CW and Gotham is on Fox. Is that right?
Gotham is on Fox.
Yeah.
So I mean that may be a big difference in it there.
Yeah.
That which is kind of interesting. I don't know how they're going to do if they're both owned by DC.
What do you mean?
Arrow and Gotham are DC, but you've got them on two separate networks. I don't know how that would work, or if there would be any type of conflict there.
Oh, you mean for like a crossover or something?
Well, not necessarily a crossover, but just any type of writing conflict or anything like that. Because I mean, you've got Flash will be on CW as well. Because the Flash, I know they are tying in with Arrow. Because that's what the Flash has already been on Arrow.
Yeah,
Really?
I'm not sure exactly what your concern is with it though.
Yeah, I don't either.
There's nothing. Those two shows have nothing to do with each other. Gotham and Arrow. And
I don't know. I guess it just seems weird to me that you would have, your different stories being told on different networks. I don't. I mean, maybe it doesn't make any difference at all, but it just.
Well, I
seems weird.
don't think it will. I mean, they're just not going to have any kind of connection whatsoever. And that's the way I see it.
Right.
yeah, and I mean, you're looking at this as Gotham doesn't even have anything to do with Batman, really.
Yeah.
So why would it have anything to do with Arrow or Flash?
Well, I'm not.
This show, the Gotham show,
It's
taking
pre-Batman,
place-
yeah.
it's
Right, but I'm not.
It's pre-Arrow and Flash.
I'm not saying it like that Gotham, Arrow, and Flash will eventually all come together in one big episode or something like that. That's not what it. Just if I were DC and I've already got two programs on CW, I don't know why you would sell another program to Fox. Like, why would you not just keep everything on that same?
Because Fox will pay more.
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said, it may not have any impact whatsoever on the shows themselves, but I'm sure that these networks have something to say with.
DC right now is going to do anything they can to put anything out. But now that Marvel's gotten so big,
Yeah,
they're gonna say yes to just about everything.
I'm sure they will. And it's a shame because, I'm a DC guy. I like DC more than Marvel, so I'm biased on it. But DC has put out amazing animated movies.
Yeah, they have. I agree with that.
And it's just one of those things where it was like, why can't you make a live action one that's as good as the animated one? I don't understand. And, Christopher Nolan did awesome with the Batman movies. I love all three of them. I think all three of them are excellent. Man of Steel, I have a soft spot because I like Superman, but honestly, there are several things in there that I think could have been done better. I almost feel like Nolan was just kind of like, whatever. You want me to do a Man of Steel movie, so I'm just going to throw it together, and it'll be what it is.
See, I almost felt like that about the last Batman movie. I mean, the first two I thought were great, and the second one was amazing. Mm-hmm. The third one, I mean, it was good, and I would watch it anytime it shows up on TV or whatever. I might go change the channel, but I just felt that there was too much. Basically too many small little plot holes, just little things here and there.
Yeah.
That just kind of felt like, who cares? Let's just keep going.
Yeah. It was either ignore it or tie it up real quick and just be done with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to me, I didn't like the corniness of it. The whole thing of calling, spoilers, calling what's his name Robin at the end of it. And, it was like, there was. My first initial reaction when I saw that movie was that the movie was absolutely fantastic until that spot. Like that one spot right there at the very end of the movie was horrible. Was absolutely horrible. And it was like you could have just left it alone. Honestly, it would have been okay if he would have said his name was Richard. It could have gone off like that, or if she said, hey, are you related to the Graysons or something like that? And that could have been your Robin tie-in. But to say, oh, his name was Robin, like none of the Robins were ever named Robin.
Yeah.
That didn't bother me, but I always wondered why they bothered doing it if they had no plans of doing anything else after that with it.
Well, I don't know that they have completely ruled that out. I mean, I keep hearing rumors of like a Nightwing movie or something, but
That'd be awesome.
yeah. But I don't know I don't know that it's ever actually going to happen. You just keep seeing stuff pop up on the internet every once in a while. Oh, there might actually be a Nightwing movie.
Yeah. But right now, I think they're focused on Batman vs Superman and Justice League.
Right.
That'll be the two that they're going to push for. I really hope they do well. I mean, I'll watch them no matter what, but I really hope they do well. I'm scared about Ben Affleck being a good Batman.
No, what about he gonna crush it?
So,
is there any other nude shows out that?
Nude shows? Are there some nude shows? Because I need to be watching those.
New.
there was one that I saw that was it How to Get Away with Murder or something like that? Actually, looked kind of cool.
I saw something about that. I don't know
We
anything
haven't
about
watched
it.
it. We don't need to talk about it.
Yeah,
is there
Because
anything?
you don't know anything about it.
Is there anything you're looking forward
That
to watching?
show's done by the same woman that does Scandal.
Mm-hmm. That and the other was Scorpion.
Scorpion.
Yeah.
I watched Scorpion.
I didn't watch it. I got it recorded. I want to watch it. Is it good?
I thought it was good.
It says it's based on a true story.
It's hard. Yeah, it's based loosely. It's based loosely on a real person.
Hmm.
I don't believe any of the actual stories are real.
Right.
But it's good. It's hard to judge. It's really hard to judge a show by one episode.
Yeah.
Especially a pilot episode.
Yeah.
And you have to give any TV show a chance to kind of catch its stride, find out what works and what doesn't, and cut some of the fat away. But for a pilot episode, for the first episode, I thought it was a good story. I thought it was enjoyable. It was good. I thought the acting was good. Maybe a little over the top in some spots as far as any kind of like realism, but it was an I thought it was a very entertaining episode, and yeah, I'd like it. I'm looking forward to seeing more of it. So I'd recommend it. I have what was it, How to Get Away with Murder on my DVR, but I haven't watched it yet.
Is anybody into the NCIS shows at all?
I don't care about those.
I love NCIS.
Do you?
Yeah.
I'm really interested. I used to watch it a lot, and I kind of got away from it. But I'm real interested in this New Orleans one with Scott Bakula, just because I like Scott Bakula.
I like it.
And see that's where I struggle because I don't like Scott
Really?
Bakula. Yeah. I thought he was awesome on Enterprise.
Yeah.
But other than that, I am not a fan of anything that he's put out. And
Really? You didn't like Quantum Leap?
I didn't really see a whole lot of Quantum Leap, but what I did see of it, I didn't like. And
But see, you're kind of young, so you probably saw it years later too, didn't you?
probably, I'm sure I did. But the other thing of it was that I saw the episode of NCIS where they did the crossover where it took place in New Orleans.
Yeah.
And it's the same issue that they have with any movie, TV show, no matter what it is. If you take a guy that was born in the Midwest and you tell him that he now has to have a Southern accent, it will never work.
That's one thing I was worried about is him doing a New Orleans accent. I mean, I almost feel like he shouldn't even try, just because he's not.
Exactly. To me, it would have been better, and it happens. You're watching in that crossover episode that I watched. He's talking to you hear his accent pop in and out, and the New Orleans accent pop in and out. And to me, it would have been better if they would have just basically explained that no, he wasn't born in New Orleans. No, he just moved here, or whatever it is. And then on top of that, his little backup guy is the dude from Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, who has this extreme Southern accent that also does not fit into Louisiana whatsoever. So
Scott Bakula was the single greatest Star Trek captain ever, period. In the discussion. Ever.
I really, like I said, I enjoyed him on Enterprise. I thought it was really good. But any other movie or TV show, I've just never been overly impressed with.
Has anybody watched Utopia at all?
I haven't seen it, but from what I understand, it's it's actually pretty cool. I mean, is that the one where they're?
I watched the first episode of it, and it's horrible.
Is it?
Oh, okay.
It
Well,
is
then.
absolutely ridiculous. It will make you lose your
Now,
faith in
it's
humanity.
is it like a Survivor, Big Brother kind of type of show? Is that what it is? I mean, the reality show thing.
I wouldn't compare it to Big Brother anyway. Maybe a little bit like reality. I mean, like Survivor a little, maybe. But there's no way I believe that it's a true reality show. I think it's 100% scripted.
Really?
Yeah, it's. I mean, the people they have on it, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. Like caricatures of every different region, religion, social background, ideology that you could possibly imagine. You know, just taken to just as far to the extreme as you can possibly take it. And it's all set up just to be where there's constant conflict and just ridiculous situations, and it's horrible. It was horrible.
You kind of made me want to watch it now.
Just to see how bad it's a train wreck.
Yeah, exactly.
Watching an episode will lower your IQ at least 10 points. At least. That's not to say that it didn't have its entertaining moments.
Yeah.
but it no,
What about Z Nation? Did you watch it? Have you seen it?
haven't watched it.
I kind of caught a couple seconds of it, flipping through the channels, but I didn't want to watch, just like the end of the show or anything like that. And I don't know how it's going to do it all. But I have heard of a Walking Dead possible spinoff, like following a second group.
Oh, that'd be kind of cool.
I've heard of it. Not much about it. I've heard rumors.
That'd be kind of cool, just to have something that refreshing take on the old story, I guess you say.
Just see what else is
I'm interested in
the world of the zombies.
Yeah. Well, just when you follow this one group's story, it makes all you think about is, they're going from Atlanta to Florida or whatever it is, and it's cool to think that we're going to show what's going on in Washington, and it might be a completely different
Absolutely, yeah. That's what
aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it'd be cool.
I'm interested in that Constantine show. The trailers and stuff I've seen for it look pretty good.
That's another DC.
Yeah, based on
it's
DC
another
Comics
DC comic story
Hellblazer.
too, yeah. And I think the only like sitcom I'm kind of interested in is Selfie, but that's just because it's starring Karen Gillan.
You don't want to see Blackish?
She's drop dead gorgeous. Blackish? No, that looks really stupid.
What's his
I know
name?
Anderson's
Lawrence Fishburne is
very
in that.
funny.
Yeah.
I heard he's supposed to be really good in it too.
Anything else?
I've heard it's a pretty weak year for new shows, really.
Yeah, you got Big Bang got renewed, and
Did you hear about what they're getting paid?
Oh yeah, they're making like $1 million an episode.
Well, not only that, but they're getting back in and stuff. At the end of their 3 years that they just signed up for, the Kelly Cuoco, the other two, Johnny Galecki and
Sheldon.
yeah, Jim Parsons, that's his name in it. But the three of them each should stand to make $93 million by the end of their contract.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that much.
It's ridiculous. And the other two supporting actors they're still going to make like $70 million with all their back end deals and stuff. Is that not ridiculous?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I guess was it Friends that set that precedent? Yeah.
Well, Friends, and I mean, it's the really big shows. They did do that. I mean, Friends and Seinfeld. Cosby Show didn't make near that kind of money back in the day, but that was a different time. But today, if they were that successful, they probably would be
Oh,
making
yeah.
that much money.
If you counted inflation into it, I'm sure they were making probably decent money.
Probably.
Same thing with like MASH. I hate to think of how much MASH money. And really, honestly, like I'd love to see that show come back. I think it would be so cool to see a remake of that.
Reboot of it, where a more modern kind of thing.
Yeah, or just retell their stories. I mean, I guess it was kind of one of those. As I was coming up, I caught some of the last seasons of it, or sporadic episodes because I was young and really didn't care about watching that. But being the age that I am now, it would actually be kind of neat to see those stories and not necessarily the goofiness that they did, because they kind of had the Happy Days and MASH and Dukes of Hazzard had all the kind of goofy, off the wall kind of humor that they did. But to see what I really enjoyed watching was when it got real and they had to actually kind of buckle down and make it through whatever the tough situation was or whatever had to be done.
Yeah, I don't know about doing a remake of the original. Even and thinking about it, I'm not sure if a reboot, just because I don't know that it's how the modern, mobile hospital kind of thing is.
Yeah, that probably doesn't fit into the modern times. And if they did do something along that, they'd probably have to do it along a Scrubs type of line where it's, and honestly, probably Scrubs is probably the closest thing that you could relate to what MASH was.
Maybe.
You had your serious moments from time to time, but a lot of it was joking around and having fun.
Yeah. Oh, what about your? So You Think You Can Dance? When's it coming up?
Oh, it's already over.
Oh, they've already done that?
Yeah, they've already finished it up. I can't remember the guy's name, but I know the guy won. He was the one that we kind of had picked. It's interesting when you watch it, you can tell, sometimes by the way the judges score, I guess you could say, the contestants, they give them some sort of criticism at the end of every dance and stuff like that. Some of them you can tell by the way that they talk as to which ones are going to make it and which ones aren't. Some of them you can actually just tell, just by watching it, you can see that this person is obviously better than the other people they're dancing against. So
now you don't watch Dancing with the Stars, though, do you?
No.
Okay.
Even though that those two are kind of affiliated with each other, there's actually people from So You Think You Can Dance that were on prior seasons of So You Think You Can Dance that are now working for
professional dancers
as the pros on the Dancing with the Stars stuff.
Yeah, some of the people that are on that this year are kind of interesting to me. Not enough that I'm going to watch the show.
Yeah,
but Daryl Waltrip's on there, and the little girl, the teenage girl from Duck Dynasty is on there, which to me is just kind of interesting. Not because I like them, because I don't at all, but because they took the youngest girl. They didn't take one of the mothers or anything, or even any of the bearded guys. They took the youngest girl, which I thought was real interesting. And they're overprotective parents, being there watching.
Well, didn't they got Alfonso Ribeiro too, right?
Oh, is he on there? Oh, he's going to win. He's going to be doing the Carlton, man.
Yeah. One of the guys I work with made a comment about that. I think he said he was on there, and the first dance, he just totally killed it because, he's like, a lot of people made fun of him for doing the Carlton, but
the Carlton
he's got the rhythm.
Exactly. It shows that he can move.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so he just totally destroyed it.
Absolutely.
One of the ones, seeing you scroll there, one of the ones that I would have liked to have gotten into, and I think they're in their second season, either second or third, is Turn. I wanted to watch that one, but I missed so much of the earlier versions of it that I kind of feel lost by it, and I kind of want to go back and watch.
There's no way they're in their third season.
It might be the second, yeah. But that one looked really cool. Just being from spies in the Revolutionary period. That one and Hell on Wheels.
Hell on Wheels isn't very good.
Really? I've only seen a couple episodes, but I thought it was awesome.
About the first half of the first season is pretty good, and then it kind of just jumps the shark and really goes off. The second season gets really bad.
What is Hell on Wheels?
It's kind of like a Western.
It's about a It's set in like the post Civil War days. It's basically about the expansion of the railroads, and it's this ex Confederate soldier that joins the railroads and ends up becoming kind of the foreman over the crews that are building the railroads out west.
I don't know anything about it.
Either of you ever watch Drunk History?
Yes, Drunk History is pretty funny.
Yeah, it's a good show. Very funny show.
Yeah. Saturday Night Live starts up this week with Chris Pratt.
Yeah, I've heard.
Chris Pratt is very funny. I hope he kills it on there.
Where's he from?
He's on Parks and Rec, but he's also a star.
He's in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Star-Lord.
Star-Lord. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
But he's very, very funny. I mean, he's the funniest character I think on Parks and Recreation. And he's real good at improv stuff too. So I hope he'll pull some stuff out on Saturday Night Live.
You hope he'll whip it out.
I hope he'll whip it out.
Whip it out. Says a lot about you, Keller.
Dude, I'd fuck Chris Pratt. Absolutely.
Okay, so
I mean, to each their own.
my topic.
Who am I to judge? You want to fuck Chris Pratt? Fuck Chris Pratt.
I ain't too proud.
So my topic is, if you guys want to throw,
Is that an empty can?
No.
We most definitely need to dive deeper into Keller.
No, I don't think we
Chris
do.
Pratt.
I don't really. It's not necessary.
Are you the man or the woman in this relationship?
Oh, geez.
That's enough of that.
I'm sorry, I tried.
It was a joke I was trying to make, and Scott's going to take it too far here.
Be teabagging involved. I'm
Scott's
curious. I think our fans would want to know.
Scott's going to take it too far, so.
Our fan.
I haven't even taken it far enough yet. Okay, well,
right.
We'll discuss some more of that on the later episodes.
That's all for imagination.
Probably every episode from now on.
So, my topic is we're going to kind of go back toward the sports thing here, but we'll talk about Tony Stewart and how he pretty much got away with murder.
No.
No, I mean, I defended a lot of these NFL players saying you have to give it benefit of the doubt. I feel the same way with Tony. You have to give it the benefit of the doubt.
Maybe manslaughter, but not murder.
Right. But I think it was just awfully weird how...
I mean, come on. When he put it in reverse and back up over him, I mean...
Now, look, here's the thing. I mean... The reason I say
obviously he forced him to smoke that marijuana.
Yeah. First of all, I believe there's no way we'll ever believe that he intentionally tried to kill the guy. That's why I say manslaughter.
Even if he came out and said, "Hey, I intentionally did this," you still wouldn't believe it.
Yeah. Obviously, that would change my mind. But
you're full of crap, Tony.
What if Chris Pratt said that the only way he'd fuck you is if you admitted that Tony Stewart was guilty?
I would not do it. I would not. I would not admit it. I don't think he intentionally tried to injure this guy in any way. I don't think his intention was never to harm this guy, and maybe scare him, maybe throw a little dirt on him, but I don't think he ever was trying to hurt the guy.
Yeah, I agree. I don't.
What? I just out of curiosity, what expert inside information is this opinion coming from?
What?
Well, I mean,
I'm just saying I don't believe that he was trying to hurt the guy. Where does inside information come into that? Play into that?
Well, I mean, you're making a statement as if you know something.
No,
the rest of us don't.
I believe that in no way. I believe that in no way was he trying to hurt this guy.
Okay, so in your opinion,
yes,
you don't think Tony Stewart did it on purpose.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
I don't think he had any intention of hurting the guy in any way. He may have been trying to scare him. He may have been trying to throw dirt on him. Possibly. I don't know if that's the case either.
You don't have to get all defensive with me just
I'm
because
not
Chris Pratt won't sleep with you.
But I don't think Tony Stewart was trying to hurt the guy. It was an accident. In fact, the crappy little video they had, I saw somebody slowed it down, and it almost looks to me like he slammed on the brakes and locked the rear tires up and slid into them. But I can't say that was the case either.
I mean, unfortunately, there's no way to really know what was going on. I mean, Tony, and that's between him and his God.
Yeah.
But to me, it was like, I agree. I don't think he intentionally meant to do any type of harm to this kid. But I did think that it was strange that
Jake disagrees.
Yeah, maybe. But he can't tell us because Cassius is over there beating him up for it. He's over there trying to spank him. But I just thought that it was really weird that, it came out and it was like, okay, Tony's under investigation for, manslaughter, all this, that, and the other. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh no, the guy was smoking dope, so Tony is no longer responsible. It's not his fault that the guy walked out in front of him.
I don't see it as being just because he was smoking dope that he wasn't responsible. And to me, the fact that the DA gave it to the grand jury to begin with made me think that the DA thought there was a possibility that he could be
guilty.
Or, well, not guilty, but it could.
A lot of thinking in that sense.
A lot of thinking goes on.
Yes, sir.
But if the DA thought there's absolutely no way that this will go to trial, he wouldn't have given it to the grand jury.
Right.
And that's just one of the things that happened to come up in the investigation was that this guy was high. But the grand jury is the one that ultimately said, no, there's not enough evidence to go to trial. So
I guess what my question was, bringing this topic up was, which Keller already answered it.
Before you ask your question, can I give my opinion?
absolutely.
Well, that was my question. Was do you think
What is Scott's opinion?
Man, okay.
Yeah, it was. Do you think?
bad, huh?
What is? Yeah, basically, what is your opinion on the situation?
Here's what I think. Here's what I think happened, based on no inside information or any or any facts. I think this is a 19-year-old kid.
No facts?
Yeah, no facts at all. I think this was a 19-year-old kid who, and I'm not sure. I don't know if there was ever any incidents between the two of them previously before this. I haven't heard, and I don't know. But I think this 19-year-old kid, he got bumped and spun out by Tony Stewart. He was pissed off. He was high on marijuana. Whether that had anything to do with it or not, who knows? My gut instinct is probably not. Marijuana doesn't tend to make you be overly aggressive. Right. But I think he was pissed off. He made a really dumb move by getting out of his car and going towards Tony Stewart. I think Tony Stewart, who is a bit of a hothead, who has that history, probably revved his engine, or maybe even made a move to get a little closer to him to prove a point, to say, look, you have no right getting out of your car, you have no right challenging me, I didn't do anything wrong, and the whole incident went horribly wrong. I don't believe there was any intention on Tony Stewart's part to do any harm to him. I can't say that necessarily means that he's not in some way, even if it's just a small way, possibly culpable for what happened.
Well, yeah, I mean, in a lot of situations like this, you kind of would be possibly given a manslaughter charge. I mean, maybe. I mean, unless it's considered just complete random accident, which I think the fact that the guy got out of his car and ran toward the moving car kind of made it where it was just a random accident.
Yeah, and I kind of feel the same way. I feel like it probably was some sort of manslaughter that should have been put on there. To me, I always think about the thing of, like in war, the victor is the one that writes history. And it's kind of the same way in this. Tony had enough money that he could, very easily have somebody say, oh, the kid was high, and that's why this happened. Because it seems awfully funny that here he was under this investigation, like you said, that the DA actually felt like this needed to go to the grand jury to be talked about, and then all of a sudden it just pops up, out of nowhere that, oh, the kid was high on marijuana, so that means Tony Stewart's no longer responsible for what happened to him.
You're breaking out a whole conspiracy theory.
Yeah,
Exactly, yeah.
And I don't
Do
see
you
that.
believe Tony Stewart probably had something to do with the death of JFK?
Now,
I'm not ruling it out.
I got a whole
Okay.
I got a whole nother story about that. We're going to talk about that later. But but no, I can't see any kind of conspiracy. I mean, as far as the guy being high on marijuana, that's just what came out in the when the evidence was released.
My whole thing of it is
seen.
that
it's not like they just put that out there and say, "Oh, this is why he's innocent."
right. No, my whole thing of it is that I agree. Tony had no intention whatsoever hurting this kid. You know, I agree. Maybe he revved the engine. Maybe he tried to slide at him. Maybe, you know, whatever it was, something went wrong and it caused it to happen. Now, let's say nothing, you know, the kid's clean. It really was just pure 100% accident. Well, in the eyes of the law, it's not just an accident. Tony Stewart goes, you know, has to serve for manslaughter. You know, no, you didn't mean to kill the guy, but you did. And because of that, you have to serve the time or you have to serve the penalty for it.
That's not. I mean, that's like saying anybody that gets killed in a car accident, somebody's going to serve time over it. That's not necessarily true. I mean, if it is just an accident where something happens, you know, just out of anybody's control, somebody dies up because of it, doesn't mean that somebody's going to go to jail for it.
Yeah, if you're driving down the street, obeying all the laws, doing the speed limit, and somebody just comes running out to the middle of the road and you hit them and kill them,
you're not going to jail.
Yeah, that's not your fault. That's not manslaughter.
Yeah, it is.
Because you didn't have anything to do with it.
That's not. That's not manslaughter.
Yeah, it is. If you hit somebody and kill them, then yes, you are responsible for killing that person.
But that's not manslaughter.
Then what is manslaughter?
Manslaughter is where you're negligent in doing something that ends up killing somebody. If you're doing everything correct.
So you're telling me that if you're driving down the street at 35 miles an hour and a guy comes running out and runs in front of you and you hit him and he dies,
it's a speed limit 35?
Yeah, and his family is not going to sue you for manslaughter?
That's not, no. They cannot sue you for manslaughter. Manslaughter.
You don't think the cop is or anybody is going to hold you responsible for the death of that person?
Absolutely not.
No, that's ridiculous.
They might sue you.
How is that ridiculous?
Because you're not doing anything wrong.
Yes, you are. You hit somebody.
That's not your fault.
Yes, it is. If you're driving down the road, you're saying that it's not your responsibility to pay attention to the people that are walking down the side of it.
Yes, but
or that might be running out into the road.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that you can stop them from jumping out in front of your car either.
But it doesn't make any difference. You're still responsible.
But you're not going to get charged with manslaughter for that. Now, their family may possibly sue you for a civil suit and the responsibility of their death, but you're not going to get charged in a criminal case for manslaughter.
Well, regardless, okay, if you were to hit somebody and you killed them, somebody's going to try to hold you responsible for killing that person,
and they still may. They could. The family of this.
They're not going to do anything.
They have already basically said that Tony Stewart, you could make us happy by paying us. They didn't say it in those words, but I guarantee you, they will sue Tony Stewart in a civil court.
But regardless of any of that, my whole point of it is that it seemed awfully strange that Tony Stewart, that this happened, and then they come back and they go, oh, during our report we found out that he had marijuana in his system, so that means that Tony is no longer responsible.
Well, I don't think that's why he was found not responsible. I don't think that's one of the factors. I don't think that's the major factor.
It is a major factor, though, because
the major factor
if he didn't have the drugs in his system, you wouldn't have near as strong an argument. Tony wouldn't have near as strong an argument if the guy were perfectly clean.
Well, that's very, maybe, depending on who's talking about it. And I mean, like Scott said, that may have had something to do with it, but I mean, like, marijuana is not something that makes you overly aggressive at all. And actually, the complete opposite from that, of that. But the fact that he got out of the car and ran into traffic is what made him not responsible. The guy got out of a car, ran into moving traffic, and it's just like we were talking about. He ran out into the front of a moving car, basically. That's why he was found not responsible. Now, obviously, I think that the DA saw something in there that's saying, well, it's possible he could be found responsible for this. Let's send it to a grand jury. And the grand jury did not agree.
Well, to me, it still goes back to that same thing. If you're driving down the road and you see this guy walking out into the road, you're going to make every possible thing that you can do to not hit that guy.
Have you ever hit?
Now it's the same thing on that track. It wasn't a surprise. The kid didn't jump out in front of Tony. He was standing there watching Tony drive toward him, and Tony made no effort to try and get away from that kid.
But see, that's the whole thing. You don't know that Tony saw him. You don't know.
Oh, that's bull.
I'm not saying that he did. I'm not saying that he didn't see him. I don't know. I mean, but let me ask you, have you ever hit an animal driving down the road?
No.
You've never hit an animal driving down the road, a cat, a squirrel.
Yeah, a squirrel maybe.
Well, the same thing. That squirrel jumps out of nowhere. A person can do the same thing, and in that case, it's not your fault that you ran over that squirrel. It's that squirrel's fault.
I mean, I understand what you're saying, but there's no way that anybody would ever believe that. And I mean, if you were,
everybody would believe that.
No, again, I guess it's all dependent on how it's presented to you. If you're driving down the road at night and it's pitch black and a guy jumps out of woods in front of your car, then yeah, okay, there was nothing you could have done about that. If it's the middle of the day and you can see the guy walking toward the road and you're, 100 yards away or 50 yards away and you don't make any effort to try and avoid hitting that person, then yes, you're at fault. And that's exactly my point with Tony Stewart. He was coming down that track. You can't tell me that he didn't have any idea that kid was standing right there. That track is wide enough that he could have very easily gone toward the inside of it and stayed as far away from him as possible.
I don't see that equating to watching a guy walk out into the street there. I mean, the situation that this happened in.
How is it not different?
We don't know what the conditions were.
If you're driving down the road and there's a guy on the sidewalk, you're 50 yards away.
We don't know what the conditions were.
And the guy is walking toward the road.
You don't know what the conditions were on this racetrack is what I'm saying. You don't know that he saw him from 50 yards away?
Dude, how big was the track?
It's not very big.
Exactly. So how do you not know that the guy is standing there?
You're going around a quarter-mile track at 60 miles an hour. It doesn't take you very long to get around that track. He may not have known he was standing there.
I'm sorry. If you got a video that sits there and shows the kid standing there in the middle of the track, waiting for Tony to come toward him.
That video was taken by somebody sitting in the stands that was not moving and was watching him the whole time, where Tony Stewart's doing a lap around the track, paying attention to a whole bunch of other stuff going on until he comes back around.
Right. And so when there's a wrecked car on the track, you're telling me he's not paying any attention to what's happened at that wreck?
Well, maybe
he didn't look at that wreck. He never once did his eyes ever cut toward the car that was sitting on the track, not moving.
Maybe they did, but that guy wasn't anywhere near the car.
Yes, he was. He was right below it.
He was 30 feet away from it and not anywhere near the car where he should have been.
No, I don't think he was that far away. Not in the video I saw. The video I saw, he was walking away from the car, headed toward the middle of the track.
Yeah.
But the car was still there. You could see the car in the video.
He could have been 30 feet away from it. I mean, that's what it looked like to me.
Well, regardless, it all goes back to the point of, you can't tell me, just like you will never believe, whatever it was, I will never believe that Tony did not see that guy. I will never believe that. Unless he was wearing a tinted visor at night that was covered in mud, there's no way you would ever convince me that he did not see it.
That's very possible too, but I don't know that to be the case.
He knew that after the accident happened that he needed to slow down. He
knew
when he was coming back around the corner that there was a car sitting there.
He was doing caution speed. He came around, and I don't know if he saw the guy or not, and that's what I'm saying. I don't believe that he intentionally tried to hurt the guy.
I don't either.
I don't know. I mean, it's a possibility. Yeah, he was trying to scare the guy, and he was trying to throw dirt on him or something like that. It's possible. I'm not saying that that's not possible.
Right, and I'm saying the same thing. I'm just saying that it's awfully funny that everything initially pointed to the fact that Tony Stewart may be responsible for running over this guy, regardless of whether it was on purpose or accident. Everything was pointing toward that.
See,
and then all of it, and then suddenly something came out that said, "Oh wait, here's this major point of evidence that says that Tony Stewart would not be responsible."
Let me ask you this: should Sterling
And
Marlin,
even you guys pointed out the fact that the stuff that they did really wouldn't have had that effect on him. You guys even pointed out that marijuana does not make you aggressive.
I don't think marijuana has plays, if any, very little part in this story at all. I don't think the marijuana has anything to do with it. The fact that came out, maybe people are trying to make it sound better in Tony's defense. I don't know. But
Exactly. That was my point of it. Like I said, it goes back to the whole thing of the Victor Wright's history. Tony has the money, and so Tony can go in there and say, "You need to put in there that he had drugs in his system, so that I'm not held responsible for that."
I don't think that's what Tony did. That's what I'm saying. I don't think Tony went in there and said, "Oh, look, he's high on drugs," and that we got to put that out there. I don't think Tony did that.
I'm saying Tony went in there and said, "Hey, say that he was high on drugs." That he paid off whoever it was to put that in there so that he wouldn't be held responsible.
I have no doubt the guy was smoking marijuana, because at a dirt track, there's a lot of marijuana being smoked. You go to Gaffney up here, and before the races start, there's a cloud of smoke, and then there's a cloud of dirt.
Well, then hell, he could have just walked through it.
Well,
and that's how it got in his system.
I don't know about that. I don't know that you can get.
Well, I mean, they didn't say how much was in his system. Just said that he had trace, I guess, or whatever.
I don't know.
No, they said he had a significant amount, but they didn't say how much. They said it was definitely enough to impair his judgment.
So let me ask you this: if somebody should be charged pretty much for any death like that, should Sterling Marlin be charged in Dale Earnhardt's death?
Well,
he's the one that bumped him from behind and turned him up against the wall.
Well, no, I mean, I don't. No, I mean, because he wasn't the one that actually killed him. It was the impact that killed him.
But he caused the impact.
Right, but he wasn't. I mean, I guess that's a different story. He didn't actually physically hit Earnhardt. He hit the car. The car could have gone any number of directions. It just happened to go that way. Now, Earnhardt could also be held responsible because he wasn't wearing the proper safety equipment.
Well,
which I know he wasn't required to wear. But
I mean, there's a lot of safety issues in that question too. I mean, there's the possibility of a defective seatbelt too, which never really made a whole lot of story.
It didn't pan into anything, did it?
But I mean, my reason for asking that is, I mean, there are accidents that happen where nobody is at fault. I mean, even if somebody hits somebody else, doesn't necessarily mean they're at fault.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. If you're traveling down the road and you bump into somebody or whatever it is, and the two cars wind up slamming into the barrier or whatever, then yeah, I mean, even then you could still, if you really wanted to, you could go back and say, okay, which person veered over what line or whatever it is. And to me, that's what the law does. If there's an accident involving two things, they're going to go figure out, okay, which person or which thing did something it wasn't supposed to do.
Well, yeah, I mean, and somebody's going to be at fault for the accident for insurance purposes, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be charged with a manslaughter charge either.
I agree.
I mean, for example, I got a friend whose sister and her boyfriend were driving down the road. They were driving from the coast in North Carolina to, I think they were going to Charlotte, and they're driving down the interstate on motorcycles, and she somehow, I don't know specifics of how this happened, but she somehow bumped him, and he went over the side of a bridge. And he got killed in this accident. He was wearing his helmet, and They took the proper safety precautions and everything, but she was not charged with a manslaughter charge. I mean, it was an accident. It's kind of just one of the things. Shit happens. Sometimes it's fucked up, but shit happens sometimes. Mm-hmm. Now, because my friend and his sister and their family are pretty well off, yeah, the other family has threatened to sue them for in a civil court, but she didn't get any kind of criminal charges out of it. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, she could be held responsible financially, but not criminally.
I guess to me it's a different situation. You're comparing two vehicles running into each other versus a vehicle running into a person.
Well,
and it's
true.
And it's also different if the person is, say, on a bicycle riding down the side of the road and suddenly he swerves to avoid something and whips out in front of a car that's coming by to pass. That's different from a person standing in the middle of the road and you not giving enough clearance between you and that person to make sure that you do not hit them. To me, that's where the fault lies. Was it when Tony was coming around that track and there's a guy standing in the middle of the track, he didn't make any effort to avoid him.
Right, but see, that's the whole situation is we don't know what the situation was in there. I mean, we don't know if Tony Stewart saw him. I mean, I know you want to say how could he not, but we don't know that he couldn't. Mm-hmm. And there's just no way of knowing unless Tony Stewart says something about it.
Right, and he's not going to.
No, he's not going to. I mean, but he's pretty distraught over the whole thing too. Yeah,
I mean, to me, what he should have done is he should have hung him up right then and there.
I disagree with that.
No, I mean, you're done. You can't race anymore. You just killed a guy on the track.
I disagree with that. I mean,
it's different. It's different from like Sterling Marlin, where you bumped into him and it was just a freak accident, and the guy died from it. Then you just ran over somebody. You just ran over a person on the track. How could you possibly get back out there and continue to do that?
I don't think that's a reason to quit. I mean, yes, it's going to be a reason to take some time off like he did and, think over some things. And, I mean, some people maybe you can't handle it and you can't get back out there. But, I mean, this is what Tony Stewart does. This is what he's always done. Tony Stewart's a racer. I mean, he's raced everything from sprint cars to open wheel Indy cars. I mean, that's what he does. That's his life. You can't tell him to.
But he doesn't need to continue doing it.
He doesn't need to.
He's got plenty of money. He owns a race team now. Go be an owner.
Doesn't need to, but I mean, that's not going to stop him.
Me personally, it would have affected me to the point where I don't think I could do it anymore.
But
I don't think I could race.
But you have to agree that he has the right to make that decision for himself.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm not saying that that some court needs to go tell him no, you can't race anymore. I'm not saying that, but like I said, me personally, I would have hung him up. There's no way I could, and maybe that's just the difference.
See, I think I would have to take time off like he did, maybe a little bit more time off, but I could get back out there after. I mean, if I knew that I didn't do it on purpose and didn't think that there was a way that I could have avoided it, then I could get back out there. If I felt like I did something to cause it, maybe couldn't get back out there. I mean, something intentional to cause it.
If it were Chris Pratt, he couldn't get back out there.
No, I couldn't.
If I knew I didn't do it on purpose, knew that I'd done everything I could do to avoid it, that there was nothing else I could have done, that I was in no way, that it was just a freak accident and I was in no way responsible for it, I would have been back on the track racing that next Sunday. I would have.
I can't argue with that.
I think you would have, if it were me, if I knew that it was just a freak thing like that. Yeah, like I said, I don't know that I'd be able to do it again, but I know that I would definitely be at that family, giving them everything.
Well, I would give them pretty much anything they wanted.
Yeah. So, well, we let this one actually run out for a pretty long time here. I guess we needed to since we missed like
A
6
few
months?
weeks, a couple weeks or so.
Here or there. I want to thank everybody for sticking around with us. If you have a topic that you want us to talk about, or if you have any comments or questions or anything, feel free to leave those in the comments section. Until next time.
If you're out there listening, Chris Pratt, Keller would just love for you to give him a phone call.
We'd love to have you on the show.
Or just a text, all you got to do is just text him and say, you up.
And if that happens, we'll let you know. Until the next time, I'm Jeff.
I'm not.
I'm Keller.
Have a good one.